Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and explore what is, honestly, the sheer biological miracle of human movement. I mean, go ahead and look at your hand for a second and just wiggle your index finger. It feels entirely effortless, right? But beneath the surface of your skin, that tiny, simple action is the result of a breathtakingly fast, microscopic relay race. It's this highly coordinated dance involving billions of cells. We're talking about an entire universe of biological machinery communicating perfectly across the vast distances within your body. So today, we're going to explore this beautiful machine, learn exactly what happens when its wiring gets damaged, and look at the incredible science fighting to protect it.
To really appreciate this, you have to start by marveling at the high-speed machinery required just to wiggle that single finger. Because, well, the movement doesn't actually start in the finger itself. It starts as a tiny electrical spark in the dark, folded landscapes of your brain. To translate that abstract, weightless thought into the physical world, your body relies on a specialized communication highway known as the motor pathway. And it's a system so elegant and so staggeringly complex that scientists have literally spent centuries trying to fully map its intricate wiring.
This journey is essentially an epic three-step relay race from the command center in your brain all the way down to your engines, which are the muscles. It originates high up in the primary motor cortex. Then, the electrical signal physically travels down through the brainstem and into the spinal cord, which acts as this grand relay station. Finally, the signal shoots out of the spinal cord and straight to the specific muscle, commanding it to contract. And just like that, your finger moves. But, this whole three-step process relies heavily on two very specific, highly specialized types of cells.
So, let's look at Section 1, the beautiful machine, commanders and messengers.
To really understand this pathway, we have to meet the two main characters of our nervous system. First up, the upper motor neurons, or UMNs. Think of the upper motor neuron as a masterful conductor. They're not only directing the music, but they're also keeping the orchestra from playing too loudly or chaotically. These are the commanders. They live up in the brain and send their long nerve fibers all the way down the spinal cord. Now, what's absolutely crucial to understand here is that upper motor neurons don't just tell muscles to move. They also send a constant underlying chill-out signal to your body's lower reflexes, which is what keeps your baseline muscle tone smooth and controlled.
Second, we have the lower motor neurons, or LMNs. If the upper motor neuron is the conductor, well, the lower motor neuron is the musician directly reading the sheet music. They transmit the final commands so your muscles can contract and you can actually walk, or talk, or breathe. These cells sit down in the brainstem and spinal cord, and their fibers stretch all the way out into your arms, legs, and face. They are the actual messengers docking directly onto the muscle fibers. Without them, the brain's commands have absolutely no way to cross that final gap to the muscle.
Which brings us to Section 2, roadblocks in the system, when the signal breaks.
So, what happens when this perfectly coordinated system experiences a roadblock? In neurology, this kind of damage is called a lesion. And because the commanders and the messengers have completely different jobs, the physical reality changes drastically depending on which specific wire gets cut. If you have an upper motor neuron lesion, say from a stroke or a spinal cord injury, the lower reflex arcs lose that masterful conductor. They lose the chill-out signal, and the result? Chaotic overreaction. On the flip side, if you have a lower motor neuron lesion, the actual connection to the muscle is severed, so the muscle just sits in total silence, receiving absolutely no input from the nervous system whatsoever.
There's a really fascinating, stark contrast between the hyperactive, spastic chaos of a UMN lesion and the weak, flaccid paralysis of an LMN lesion. Look at the muscle tone, for example. Without the brain's inhibitory control, an upper motor neuron lesion causes severe spasticity and stiffness, and your reflexes just go into absolute overdrive, a condition called hyperreflexia. You'll even see the famous Babinski sign, which is an abnormal reflex of the toes. But conversely, an LMN lesion causes the exact opposite: flaccidity, severe weakness, and hyporeflexia, meaning the reflexes are diminished or just entirely gone.
When we focus specifically on the physical signs of lower motor neuron damage, it's quite dramatic. If the messenger is cut down, the muscle sits completely abandoned, and without that constant electrical stimulation, it literally shrinks away and wastes. This is profound muscle atrophy. Even more fascinating and honestly slightly tragic, you will often see fasciculations. These are spontaneous, visible twitches bubbling just under the skin as the dying muscle fibers desperately fire off, searching for a signal that is just never coming. As the research organization Target ALS notes, neuron lesions are defined as areas of damage to motor neurons, and recognizing these distinct types of lesions is the exact detective work neurologists use to pinpoint where the nervous system is failing. By observing whether a patient has a stiff, spastic leg with hyperactive reflexes or a weak, shrinking leg with fasciculations, doctors can map the damage backward to either the upper commanders or the lower messengers. It's incredibly precise biological troubleshooting.
This leads us to Section 3, the ultimate malfunction, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. This brings us to what is arguably the most devastating neurological roadblock of all. Imagine the tragedy of losing both the commander's guidance and the messenger's connection at the exact same time. How can a body be stiff and spastic, yet flaccid and shrinking all at once? What happens when a disease doesn't just choose between the brain or the spinal cord, but instead wages war on the entire motor pathway?
Well, this cruel biological paradox is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, often known as Lou Gehrig's disease. You see, ALS doesn't just cut one wire. It steadily dismantles the entire beautiful machine from the brain all the way to the muscle. It's uniquely devastating because it's characterized by the progressive degeneration of both upper and lower motor neurons. The brain loses its ability to send the signals, and the spinal cord completely loses its ability to deliver them.
And this dual degeneration creates a truly heartbreaking physical reality. Patients experience stiffness and overactive reflexes while their muscles are simultaneously shrinking and weakening. Because both UMN and LMN pathways are decaying, patients face a steady, progressive loss of all voluntary muscle control. Over time, this creeping paralysis affects mobility, strips away the ability to coordinate speech, and eventually compromises swallowing and breathing. All the patient's mind usually remains entirely intact and perfectly aware.
Now for Section 4, a glimmer of hope, the search for biomarkers. Yet, even in the face of this profound biological malfunction, human ingenuity is fighting back. The scientific community just refuses to let the breakdown of this pathway be the final word. The key is to catch it before the damage becomes irreversible, before those motor neurons completely fade away. As Target ALS explains, they've launched the Diagnosis Initiative, investing in the discovery of biomarkers to diagnose the disease early, track progression, and provide measures for treatments. Think of biomarkers as biological breadcrumbs, tiny, detectable changes in the body that signal these lesions are beginning long before the severe physical symptoms ever show up. Finding reliable biomarkers is literally an absolute game changer for testing new, life-saving treatments. As we continue to study the breathtaking complexity of the human body, we are left hoping that the next big discovery will keep these beautiful signals flowing forever. We've mapped the epic journey from the motor cortex to the muscle, we understand the commanders and the messengers, and we know exactly what breaks down in diseases like ALS. The beautiful machine of the human nervous system is incredibly intricate, and, yes, it's fragile, but human resilience and scientific discovery are proving to be just as relentless. So what new breakthrough will researchers uncover next as they decode this microscopic world? That's the question that leaves us looking toward the future with genuine, profound hope.